Alright, y'all. This has a lot to do with everything that's going on.
Virginia down here, this is Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. It used to be called the Territory of Columbia. You think if we were a Christian nation, we would name it after our God. Well, it is named after our God, but it's not the God of the Bible. And there is Georgetown. I was just speaking about Georgetown University, but there's Georgetown. There's the Pentagon, the pentagram, Venus, and here we have Alexandria. Now, the Library of Alexandria is where Isis, there's Alexandria, Egypt. It's a famous library where Isis and also Serapis, who was just another form of Osiris, were worshipped. Anyway, so Virginia, between the District of Columbia, shaped like the diamond or the square, which is a Masonic symbol of the feminine, the divine feminine, the square and the diamond. Lucy in the sky with diamonds. And so between Virginia and Maryland.
So let's get into Washington, D.C. I got some questions here for you. Here's the flag, which very few people know about. Notice the 3 stars, 2 bars. Notice the red and white colors, okay? We'll get into that in a little bit. All right, let's see if you can answer any of the following basic questions about the founding of Washington, D.C. and its ownership. What date was Washington, D.C. founded? Now, we all know July 4th, 1776, the United States of America was founded. But what date was the president that holds the president, the Supreme Court, and Congress that makes the laws and runs the United States of America and all its states, and we pay our taxes to? Come on, folks, what date? Anybody? Didn't think so. Why was Washington, D.C. founded? What was the reason for forming the federal government? And you can get into the Federalist Papers and all that, but what I'm more looking for is the reason for creating the legal framework around Washington, D.C. Okay, here's an easy one. Washington, D.C. was in the state of Maryland. What city in Maryland was it before it became Washington, D.C.? And then who donated the land that became Washington, D.C.? I'll give you a hint. He was the richest man in the United States at the time. And what major university was founded 6 months before and what was to become Washington, D.C.? And who donated that land? All right, who is the White House named after? It's not named because it's pig-colored white. That is not true. Why is the nation's capital named the District of Columbia? It's not after Christopher Columbus. That's the wrong answer. 8. What are the other districts in Columbia? If it's just a district, like a district attorney is part of a district of a bigger area. What are the other districts in the Columbia's districts? Okay, what secret society laid the cornerstone for the nation's Capitol building? That could be easy for you guys. And then list the incredible similarities, the many similarities, the incredible similarities between the assassinations of John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln. So here's the Great Seal of the District of Columbia. And you can see here it's in the red, white, and blue. You have a wreath here, and you have the man squaring, his feet are squaring the circle here. There's your Freemason sign. Here's the 2-ball cane, and here's the fasces that he's holding in the other hand. Fasces, 2-ball cane, circle, squaring with his feet. All Freemasonic symbolism, as I said, the red, white, and blue. And here's Persephone, we'll get into a little bit later. Here's the shining hill that Ronald Reagan was talking about, the golden hills on this side. And you look at this thing right here, folks, next to the big shining. And what is this right here? I'll get into it in a minute, but look at that with little vapor trails it looks like coming off. Here's the red, white, and blue eagle holding in its mouth something, the dress, I guess, of Persephone, and she's got her tablet of codes. Imagine that's the commandments. Now look over here, folks. This looks like the state capitol, and look, it's behind and underwater, or a big tidal wave seems to be coming over here. Very strange. And look on the grass in front. Those are spiders or something creepy is crawling, it looks like, towards the Senate building, the White House, US Capitol, with water rising behind it. Here's the date, 1871, I'm giving out, and when it was founded. And then it says, Justitia Omnibus. You can read it one of 2 ways. It means just everyone, or it means just us on the bus. All right, so what date was Washington, D.C. founded? Well, on July 9th, 1790, the Congress passed the Residence Acts, which approved the creation for the foundation of Washington, D.C. But an Organic Act of 1871 on February 23rd repealed the individual charters of Washington and Georgetown and created a new territorial government for the whole District of Columbia. So the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1801, officially an act concerning the District of Columbia, it was formally placed the District of Columbia under the control of the United States Congress. Now, isn't this interesting in that it's just Congress, the President, and the Supreme Court that are basically in the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. So they got the hens or the foxes ruling the hen house. The Congress is overseeing themselves. Isn't that cool? All right, so there's 3 city-states. That's why they have 3 bars here on the 3 stars, excuse me. They represent the trilaterals, which we'll get into in a little bit. But the trilaterals is the City of London, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C. These are 3 separate city-states and belong to no other nation, pay no taxes. They have their own separate laws, flags, police, mayors, and post offices. The United States of America does not have control of the federal government. Congress oversees the federal government. This is where your federal taxes go, folks. It's another subject. All right, so the Constitution for the District of Columbia operates under Roman law, under Lex Fori, which bears no resemblance to the U.S. Constitution. In 1871, it created a separate corporation known as Capitalized the United States. And you need a Roman Latin dictionary to understand the words and its meanings. But I refer you to the United States Code, note the capitalization, indicating the corporation, not the republic. Title 28, 3002, Section 15, A, B, and C. It is stated unequivocally that the capital letters United States is a corporation. The Treasonous Act of the 41st Congress allowed the District of Columbia to operate as a corporation outside of the original Constitution of the United States and outside the best interest of the American citizens. The president presides over the U.S. corporation. Notice USA in capital letters. That's why they have a board of directors, a treasurer, a secretary. It's set up exactly like a corporation. If you look at the word president, it has the word resident in between. Res means to reside, a property or thing, and ident is for identification. A capital P is the principal. So it's the principal of the thing identified, and that's what they consider us as part of their corporation. That's why we're on our citizenships. So anyway, so let's get on here. It's, capitalization is significant. If you question that at all, you remember Bill Clinton in 1999 getting in front of a federal grand jury and said it depends on what the definition of is. That's what his argument was between oral and vaginal sex with Monica Lewinsky in front of a federal grand jury. This lawyer, Bill Clinton, argued it depends on what the word is, and of course they let him off, and it goes on from there. So in the 1871 was to create an entirely new document, and the kind of government they created was a corporation, folks. So what we need to understand is that the corporation is about keeping us on our fictitious characters and our straw man, which we'll get into another time. So our currency and court systems are still based on Roman Latin law. That's why we need a Latin dictionary. Very few can even tell you what the word Latin means. We have Latin America, and very few Latinos can even tell you what the word Latin means. Our money, or one-eye system of exchange, as you see on the back of the dollar bill, was created the first SQV trust by Pope Boniface VII in 1306. He made himself the trustee of Jesus Christ holdings on earth, including the reaping of all lands and souls. These three trusts, these SQV trusts were set up in the 1300s and early 1400s. You can look them up. The Roman Pontifex Trust, the Unum Sanctum Trust, under the SQVs, and we're still under these trusts today. A bar is a bar attorney registered to the British Accredited Registry. All United States attorneys, in order if they practice in U.S. courts, a corporation is a court, they must be registered under the bar. So they're registered under the City of London, practicing law in the United States. If you're a bar member, you're registered under the Crown, and also the registration papers for the corporation is in Puerto Rico. Also, the laws are under maritime law. This is why we go into court, we go under citizenship, our partnership, relationship, ownership, membership, leadership, friendship. We enter through the docket that's opened by a bailiff. Okay, it's all based on monetary. They've controlled the days of our money system since the days of Alexandria and Cleopatra. This is why we have a river bank in our currency holding our deposit slips in liquid and frozen assets. And the name of the Vatican Church is the Holy See. Okay, and they look at us as human resources. We're just chattel or cattle in the eyes of the law. And your birth certificate was created in 1927, and it's your mother's surname that's used on the document. The hospital is paid by the government to register. Regis means crown, stir means to enroll you at birth. So you came down your water canal, and they put your foot on the landmark, so you signed the contract, and they securitized your debt against the debt that was created in bankruptcy in 1933 that we've never gotten out of. The bankers needed collateral. They created the birth certificate. All of us that get registered at the hospital are securitized collateral against the obligated debt held by the banksters of the U.S. government ever since World War I. It's never been paid off. Now, how many of you, what was the name of the city in Maryland before it came Washington, D.C.? The name of the city was Rome, Maryland, folks. And here you see on both sides of their new birthing in Rome, Maryland, is the Virgin Mary. It's Virginia and Maryland on both sides of Rome, Maryland. This was what the Vatican called the New Jerusalem they were creating, and so they put the Virgin Mary of their new birthing on each side. The land today, known as District of Columbia, bore the name Rome, Maryland in the 1663 property records. The Potomac River that bordered Rome in the south was called the Tiber River, just like in Rome, folks. They had 7 hills as well. There's 7 hills in Washington, D.C. The Capitol Hill, Meridian Hill, Floral Hill, Forest, Hillbrook, Hillcrest, and Knox Hill. Now, in biblical prophecy, at the end of which city of the 7 hills will be destroyed? Will this be Rome or Washington? Now, this is an excerpt from the Georgetown Education Library, folks, the Jesuit school. All right, so who donated the land that became Washington, D.C.? Now, these are the 3 of the most infamous unknown characters that founded Washington, D.C. that very few have ever heard of, except if you're in the Jesuit world, they're very much celebrated. And that's the Carroll family. Now, they were the Roman Catholic Carroll family. Daniel Carroll provided the land for Washington, D.C., also Georgetown University. He founded 6 months before. Charles Carroll was the war commissioner, controlling all the executive duties of the military department with his ammunition, supplies of cannonballs, shot, kettles, spikes, and nails to the army. Think that guy was pretty powerful? John Carroll, an intimate friend of Benjamin Franklin, even lived in Franklin's house. John Carroll founded Georgetown University 6 months before, not Daniel. He was also the first Catholic bishop in the United States, John Carroll. So Daniel Carroll was a member of the Continental Congress and a signer of the Articles of Confederation. He was a delegate to the Constitutional Convention and one of only 2 Catholic signers of the United States Constitution. Now remember, the Protestants came across, and they were up in north, and they desperately did not want the Jesuits to be infiltrating the Catholics. In fact, the Catholics weren't allowed to have religion. This is one of the reasons why they infiltrated and created Washington, D.C., was to separate church and religion so they could practice their Jesuit ways. Now, Daniel Carroll, he was the author of enshrined in the Constitution that powers not specifically delegated to the federal government were reserved to the states or the people. So this is how he changed it from getting the separation of church and state, so the Jesuits could infiltrate. Now, Daniel Carroll later became a member of the Congress, 1789 to 91. He was also a member of the Senate of Maryland, the first one where he served up time until his death. He was appointed by George Washington as one of the first 3 commissioners of the new federal city that is known as the District of Columbia. Those 3 stars above also represent the first 3 commissioners. They have double meanings. All right. So what major university was founded 6 months before? Jesuit Georgetown University, and you notice the emblem of Georgetown is also the emblem on the back of the dollar bill. Wow, isn't that unique? It's the Roman eagle grasping the world and the cross in a state and Roman Catholic church with a banner in its beak. So John Carroll, Daniel's younger brother, was educated in the Jesuit order in Europe and ordained a priest. He founded a private school and named it after the town where it was located in Georgetown. He went on to be elected the priest of America to become the first Catholic bishop. He was consecrated on the day of the Feast of the Assumptions. In 1781, 1 year before the founding of Washington, D.C., Carroll founded the college, Georgetown, that later became known as Georgetown University. Now, on a sidebar on this, if you go around most of cities and states, Sacramento, California, nearby where I live, the Freemasons founded the Sacramento 6 months before the state capitol. And you'll find this in many, many cities and many towns. You'll find the Freemasons buildings were founded just months before the cities were founded. You can check it out where you live. All right. So John Carroll went on an expedition with 4 Catholics that bore fruit years later in Yorktown. The largely Catholic-financed French fleet cut off supplies to the British during the War for Independence to General Charles Cornwallis, and Washington was able to force Cornwallis to surrender and bring a war to the end. John Carroll was an intimate of Washington. He wrote a prayer at the time of Washington's inauguration, so they were very, very close. So here we see Washington and the Jesuits and the French collaborating together to defeat the British. But one name, surprisingly or perhaps not so, stands out. In spite of, regardless of the Pope's anathemas and fearful excommunications that sends one to hell for being a Freemason, we find Roman Catholic, Jesuit-educated Daniel Carroll's name among those who are most prominent Freemasons. How is it possible that Daniel Carroll, who represented the top echelons of the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church in America, whose cousin Charles was the most vocal political spokesman for the Church, and his brother John, a Jesuit who founded the New American Roman Catholic Church, be a Freemason? The answer lies in a deeply hidden mystery. Charles and Daniel Carroll were both members of the new Congress. Charles Carroll was elected to the Senate and Daniel Carroll to the House. They had both sides covered. And this end result gave the First Amendment, which says Congress shall make no laws respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. This was the day of great glory for the Carrolls in the Roman Catholic Church, as they were allowed to infiltrate with their religions. It was called their great work. It was also allowed Rome to function and flourish in America. Now, the Carrolls and Freemasons who were influencing the forming of the new American government brought into existence in year 1789 13 years, there's that number, after independence was declared, okay? We find a very conspicuous correlation between the launching of the American government and the founding of the American Catholic Church hierarchy. George Washington was inaugurated in 1789, so was John Carroll elected the first bishop of the Catholic Church in the same exact year. Be assured it's no coincidence that the American government, the American Roman Catholic Church hierarchy, and the Jesuit Georgetown College all marked their beginnings in 1789. Okay? So George Washington became their front man, enabled Carrolls to have the American seat of government placed in their own front yard. Jesuit Charles Plowden preached on a Memorial Day when commenting on the American Revolution. This great work may appear to us to have been the work, the sport of human passion, yet the earliest and most precious fruit has been the extension of the kingdom of Christ. The propagation of the Catholic religion, which heretofore fettered by restraining laws, is now enlarged from bondage and is left at liberty to exert the full energy of divine truth, their truth. Glorious is this day, my brethren, for the church of God, which sees new nations crowding her bosom. And on it went. So America's national motto, seen on the back of the dollar bill, Annuit Coeptus, came to a prayer to Jupiter, appears in Book 9 of Virgil's epic Propaganda, the Aeneid, a poem commissioned just before the birth of Christ by Caius Maecenas, the multi-billionaire behind Augustus Caesar. Rome. Objective was to fashion Rome into an imperial monarchy in which its citizens would gladly sacrifice their lives. So, about Latin here, it's King Latinus comes up to form the nation of Latinium. This is where Latin comes from, folks. Fasces. Now, fasces comes way back, and it's a term for fascism. It's back to the Roman days, and they used to call it Lycor. Here's the three city-states. We have the religion run by the Vatican, the finance run by the city of London, and Washington, D.C. is the military. That's why the U.S. has 175 military occupations and countries out of 185 countries. So we dominate the world with our military. So I want to get into fasces here. Now, you notice these sticks on each side where the president is speaking in the Capitol building. These are also called lycors, and we'll get into it a little bit. But it's in the Oval Office leading to the doors and the walkways aboard the corresponding door in the opposite wall that leads to the president's private office. It's because in the Roman Republic, the blade was always removed from the bundle. These are caning rods, folks. These are sticks they used to cane them when they made new laws in Rome, and then there's an axeman's hench on the top of it. Now, the two fasces appear on either side of the flag of the United States, the House of Representatives, on the seal of the United States Senate, on the state freedom atop the United States Capitol. It's everywhere, folks. They've got this thing. See, it's on the back of the dime. These are the caning rods. The axeman hench isn't on this one, but it's all over the dimes. The National Guard uses the fasces seal. Wisconsin State Capitol, the Lincoln Memorial. Here you see a reenactment of Roman soldiers when they make new laws. The council, general council, they go around and say, anybody object to our laws? And if you didn't like it, they would whip you and cut off your heads if it got too egregious. Here we see Colorado with the one eye and the bundling rod, the axeman's hench, all the signs of the Illuminati. Notice the date 1876. Here's George Washington with the Lycar with the fasces right there on the monument. Here it is on the Office of United States Administration and the court systems. They just flaunt it, folks. Here it is on the Military Police Brigade, 42nd. You'll also notice on Hitler's work as well. Here it is in Congress with the president speaking with Nancy Pelosi and the Dick Cheney behind him. And here you see the eagles on top of the flags, the maritime law flags, folks. It's right there. All right, so the Carroll family believed that a Catholic institution can make a major contribution to the political, cultural, educated life of a fledgling nation. This proved to be a major turning point in the Catholic-Protestant relations. So I want to just bring attention to the Jesuit oath here, talking about how they will rip up the stomach and wombs of women, crush the infants. They will use if they cannot commit what the Pope or somebody's ordered them to do as far as committing murder or anything they are told to do, they will secretly use the poison cup, the strangulating cord, the steel poniard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the person or persons. As long as they're ordered to do it, they will follow their orders. So in 1776, as I said, everything gets established right before the country or state is being established. We see Adam Weishaupt, a Freemason, a Jesuit, came over, and May 1st, May Day, that's their day, May Day, was the year in which the Jesuit established the Illuminati 2 months before the Constitution was signed. As the Jesuit general put, we have men for martyrdom if they be required. So what they did was they contributed towards the War of Independence by putting Catholics in the war that died in the war, showing they were part of it, when in fact their end game was to get the separate church and state so they could establish their new Jerusalem in Washington, D.C.
That is crazy. You guys need to do some research on this because it's going downhill real fast. Real fast.